fat Scottish man in the Highlands, the editor of the Morning Star, a teenager from Sweden, a total lack of serious warfare, and 60 children from Yemen. No, I've not lost my nut. I'm here to tell you why they've all benefited from globalisation. Let's start with a fat Scottish man in the Highland. It's alright, he's my friend, I can call him that. He had a heart attack a couple of weeks ago. And it was a serious heart attack. It was the aorta, complete, total breakdown. So what happened to him? Well, he was taken to a hospital in London. And there wasn't quite the expertise to deal with this heart attack in this hospital in London. So what happened? Well, he got a robot in. And then there was a surgeon in Korea, at the other end of the world, who operated via satellite link using a robot and instructing fellow surgeons. My friend is still alive because of globalisation. And this is what's coming. This is the future that we have. People being saved by someone at the other end of the world via a satellite link. That's marvellous. But it's not just life-saving in the immediate terms it works. Let's go to that little girl in Sweden. She was sitting outside a roadblock. I know it quite well actually, because I passed there when I used to live in Stockholm for a month. And that's where she was sitting, with a sign. Climate strike. No one paid her any attention. Until a journalist from The Guardian came along and took a picture of her. And asked her a question. What are you doing? Why are you sitting at this roadblock with this sign? And lo and behold, a little girl called Greta Thunberg told her story. And that story got retweeted. And that story got broadcast. And that story has inspired a global movement for international change on environment. That, yes, I'll admit, I'm a bit of a geek. I do watch Davos speeches. Yes, you can make jokes about my social life all you want. But I do. And it's funny that all those Davos speeches, environment, gender equality, exploitation of the third world, all of this came from a little girl who sat on a street corner with a sign, who was photographed by an English journalist that was lauded by an international corporation that put her photograph everywhere. That is what globalisation can do. But globalisation does something else. I had one of the most wonderful dinners with an editor of the Morning Star. Now, you might think that's bizarre. Robbie, you're a conservative. Well, how would you have a good dinner with someone at the Morning Star? Because we had a discussion. We discussed Venezuela, we discussed Cuba, we discussed American politics, we discussed China. We discussed things that people generations ago would never have been discussed because they wouldn't have necessarily known about them. Globalisation has made us smarter. We are so much more aware of the things going on in the world, and that means that everyone from every opinion has so much more to base it on, so many more facts, such a better worldview to draw their opinions from. And that discussion has made us both better people. We both understand each other more, and we both have such a broader term of reference. And that's the benefit of globalisation. One of the undeniable benefits of globalisation is that people can have a say. Look at Joe Biden's flagging campaign in the US. Yes, you might laugh, what's this got to do with globalisation? His campaign is being undone by a young immigrant girl asking him a question that has blown up on the internet. I don't know if you saw it. He called her a dog-faced, pony-faced liar. But that girl was just an international girl who asked him a question. It went on the internet. It went viral. Now, before a globalised press, where such things would have maybe gone on at a meeting we would never have known, we can hold politicians to account now. What they say is broadcast everywhere. We can watch it. We can dispute it. We can discuss it real time. That is a power that almost very few previous generations have ever had. Now, the professor was very right. We have had a total lack of serious warfare since globalisation has really accelerated in the 1990s. We don't have serious all-out war anymore. We don't. Why? Not just, I would contest, because of greater economic links between countries mean that warfare is totally unsustainable. You are less and less and less likely to fight someone that you have an economic interest with. And yes.
In the idea that warfare is rarer since the era of globalisation, what do you say to the fact that in the last 20 years the West has attacked Yugoslavia, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Libya?
Well, actually, I'd say that firstly, the Bosnian War is actually a success of globalisation. Young Islamic boys were being murdered. They were being put in ditches, slaughtered in a genocide that we said in 1940 would never ever happen again. And what happened? Civil society called out and said, there is a genocide. Young boys are being put in ditches. Men are being slaughtered. And what happened? The US and UK, and I think still to this day, without much praise, and without much thanks for it, intervened and stopped a mass murder and genocide. Now, if that isn't a success of globalisation, I don't know. Yes, there has been war, but I'm talking serious, prolonged conflict. I don't think I would actually class Iraq as a serious, prolonged conflict. And I know people are going to laugh. No, you're welcome to laugh at that, but let me explain why it's not a serious, prolonged conflict. Iraq wasn't, and is now, a massive issue because of a destabilisation that occurred within the region. Now, the destabilisation has occurred largely due to a lack of globalisation. What has happened after Iraq? Everyone walked away. The US walked away. Russia walked away. The UK walked away. We had a duty to the people of Iraq. We said, when we go in there, we will build you a state. We will build you a functioning judicial system. We will build you functioning infrastructure that we destroyed. And we walked away. We walked away from people in their dire need with an unstable state, with a sectarian army that had been disbanded. And what do we expect when we don't do the job properly? What we got was instability. We didn't get a proper war. We've had proxy wars with state terrorists, but we actually failed due to globalisation not being enacted in its full state. We should have gone in there and helped them properly and done it to the way that we needed to do the job, as was instructed actually in UN resolution, I think it's 1411. But that's the point. We should have done that from the very start. But on the actual basis of war, because I was actually going to go in a slightly different topic, why is war less and less and less likely? Because people know other people across the world. More and more and more, people are now interconnected to people across the world. You are more and more likely to be against war the more international friendships you've had, the more universities you've been to, the more you've worked abroad. What we're seeing is that globalisation actually reduces war, and it reduces that through political accountability as well. Because right now in the world, how many countries are actually in a serious conflict with each other? What we're seeing is internecine civil wars that are brutal and violent. And yes, we're seeing in Syria the massive displacement. But let's look at the countries that are actually featuring displacement, because I think that was a very excellent point that was raised. You're seeing it in Syria, a country that was massively isolationist. In fact, a country at the 2012 global food conflict that said it wouldn't sign up to genetically modified food because it suspected that Israel was behind it. This was a country that was so isolationist, it was stopping any further international cooperation. Then look at Russia and Ukraine, another major source of displacement. Russia was blatantly flouting international law. Russia was blatantly flouting basic parts of the international order. And that is what we're seeing. The problems are not countries that are embracing globalisation, there are countries that are against globalisation. Yes, please.
Don't you think it's a bit funny that all of these isolationist countries that have problems with America and other members of the international community often end up getting invaded or have these massive internal conflicts? It seems like a bit of a coincidence.
No, I actually think that's a failure. No. That's completely right, but that's a failure of globalisation. That is a failure of globalisation. You might be surprised at why I say so. Because the US flouted basic international law to enter Iraq. The US acted extrajudicially in these processes. This was countries acting outside the global international order. But what's happened since Iraq? Well, we've seen, actually, the world has rallied against international intervention that is not within the global liberal order. American intervention is unpopular. America wants to intervene in a lot of conflicts, I can tell you that. For example, if you put John Bolton in a room with an atlas, he would have coloured in every single landmass and probably the sea as well. But the point is, at the end of the day, America's not doing that. And why is America not doing that? Because international accountability, the rule of law, international links have meant that international conflict like that is not happening on this scale. We're seeing proxy wars and militias. So therefore, on that basis, I would encourage you to vote against this motion.